This is the official Celtic FC podcast.
Scotland's call-up is a moment though where everything does change for yourself. Playing against Romania on your debut, and you sustain an injury which keeps you out for the next 3 years. How difficult a moment was that for you, particularly given the way that your career had been moving in the weeks and the months prior to that?
Yeah, it was a tough one. I still remember it very clearly in terms of the game itself. So even in the game itself, I ended up playing on the left side again. I think it was because Bertie Vogts had been at the game and seen me playing there, obviously in the weekend against Rangers, and the way the game started, I ended up playing on the left side. And I remember the tackle. I remember just kind of coming in. I remember at the time thinking something's happened here, and you almost go into a wee bit of state of shock when you get such a bad injury. And again, just being me, I remember saying to the physio, just get me up type of thing, and they were kind of tentative, and I remember kind of pulling myself up onto my feet a little bit. And I remember the first step I took, I just remember my whole leg buckling, and I thought my leg was broke. So I remember saying to the physio, my shin snapped. I remember seeing my kind of leg just shift outside, and I remember saying my shin snapped, and they were like, just sit down. And then the stretcher came. Obviously went to hospital. At the time, then they were then talking a bit around, we're a bit concerned about your knee ligaments and everything else, but we can't really do anything at the moment till tomorrow when you can get scanned and all these type of things. And again, when you're young, you think you're untouchable. You kind of on the crest of this wave, everything's going in the right direction. You feel untouchable, but again, it's a life lesson that you can come crashing down at any given moment, and that was the case for me. And it's something that I still use in a coaching capacity at times. In kind of my experience. Is take nothing for granted ever, in terms of what you've got, make the most of it. On any given day, every game, you just got to maximise your career, because it can change in a flick of a switch, and that's what happened really. I tried to come back and had moments through that period, but and couldn't quite get back to where I knew I could have been, and at the same time I was always kind of in a fight and in a struggle to try and keep myself going. But through that period the initial period was probably toughest, because I went from a period of making my debut, playing in Barcelona, playing at Ibrox, then all of a sudden everything's taken away from you, and you're sitting literally in the hands of the doctors. In terms of Roddy McDonald, who was here at the time, we kind of visited the hospital the following day, got some scans, and basically the doctor in Glasgow at the time, his words were basically, I've never seen anything like this. It was just such a kind of horrific injury. And basically everything in my knee, pretty much, other than my kind of medial ligament, had just been obliterated, just snapped to pieces. So literally when I took a step on the pitch, it then transpired there was nothing holding my knee together, so my whole knee just dislocated at that point, because it was in pieces. So, and he advised us at the time, look, you're probably best going to America or somewhere who's used to dealing with more, bigger injuries. So we did that. To be fair, the club were terrific in that respect. They wanted to, support us and give us the best possible chance. We went out to America. We, spent, I think the first time I was there, I was around 6 weeks. I was spent out there. And the doctor out there, Richard Stedman, was an unbelievable guy. Terrific doctor. And he was a guy who dealt with a lot of the NFL injuries and everything else. And I remember him saying to us as well at the time, it was, you only really see this injury in two cases, one being NFL, when it's a total wipeout on somebody's standing leg, and a car crash. That's wow. That's how severe your injury is. And at that time, he never gave us, very clear, you'll definitely play again, but he gave us a chance. He gave me a chance. He said, we're going to kind of do this in 3 stages. We can't do it all at once. It's too much. So we'll kind of get your knee settled down over the next 2-3 weeks. We'll bring you into theatre. We'll do some of the work and we'll investigate while we're in there. But it's going to probably take 2 or 3 blocks to kind of re-piece everything together. And remember at that point, so the most difficult part was up till that period, but it was unknown, in terms of at that whole time, all you can think about is I'm done. I'm never going to play for Celtic again. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to play football again. Your whole family they're in it with you, because as much as they're, crying tears of joy and being proud of you sitting at Celtic Park when you make your debut, on the flip side of that, when it goes the other way, they're also the ones who probably take it, as bad, if not worse, than yourself. So it was very much one where, as soon as I was given that, bit of hope, that was all I needed. And it kind of set me back on track, because I had a period, probably about a month, where head was scrambled, really unclear on what I was going to do, to a point where the surgeon says, we'll do this, this and this, and that'll kind of take you along the path to recovery. And at that point, just something clicked in me saying, right, I'm fine with that. As long as I've got a bit of hope, I'll tackle it kind of head on. And that's what we did. It was a long time. As you said, it was 3 years between playing games, several setbacks along the way. But, we eventually got there. And my whole drive the whole time was that feeling of, almost like my debut in a way, going back to walking out at Celtic Park. That was my drive the whole time. So when I was in the gym, when I was running a treadmill, at times I would go out running in the woods during breaks we had and stuff as well. The whole time, all I pictured all the time was walking back out at Celtic Park.
I think that's remarkable that you had that drive and that determination to come back, and to come back as well and to play again for Celtic is such a remarkable achievement in itself. And you spoke about moments there during those 3 years. Were there dark times during that period? Were there moments where you thought about just not even trying again?
Not so much not trying again. There was just moments where I felt like you kind of lose control a little bit. When things are in your control, you can kind of manipulate it and make it go in the direction you want. There's just some things you don't have control of. So with my knees in the state it's in, the only person that can really help it is the doctor. I can do all the rehab and I can do all the exercise he wants, but if he goes in on any given surgery and comes out and says, I can't fix this, there's literally nothing I can do. So each time that happened, in terms of, he's a very, very positive guy, always seen he was a kind of glass half full type of guy who you see the positive in it. So every time he gave me hope, I knew I had something to cling on to drive me forward again. And during the period, again, the first period was probably the worst. And probably two moments. One was the first period, again, going from being a young guy, inexperienced, thinking, everything's on the rise, to come crashing down, and it's a hell of a crash. But that real uncertain period of not knowing if you're ever going to play again, that was the worst. And I could see it in my family. I could see it, people around me were hurting as well, which wasn't easy. But that was fine. Once we got over that, we kind of attacked everything. And then there was another period where I'd come back to training. So we'd had some surgeries, went through a few blocks of rehabilitation. And I came back into training. And on the second day back in, I remember I remember the moment. It was two moments. One's kind of balls came up to the player. He's kind of went to go round the kind of corner, and I've went to push him, and I just felt a shift in my knee. It was almost like just a thud, And I thought, that doesn't feel right. But it was one of those you didn't want to show any sign of weakness as such, even though it's silly to say that. So I kind of carried on. I remember that exercise was a possession. We finished very quickly and went into games straight after it. And I was actually playing against Chris Sutton at the time. And I remember the same thing happened where he just kind of moved off to the side. And as he moved off to the side, I went to push and I literally just collapsed on the ground. And it wasn't painful. It was just obviously my part of my knee just giving way again. And this was 2 days into my kind of return to training. And there was no pain in that, so I literally stepped back up. And I remember walking straight off the pitch to Roddy, who was the doc at the time, and just went my knees away. He's like, what? I says, my knees just went. I says, that's shifted on me twice, and the second time it's just folded under me. And he's like, right, okay. So again, it was more trips to America. It was more rehab. Again, I was given more hope. The second time going back, this next part of it was probably the toughest, because at that point the doctor was saying, like, what we've done so far isn't working. It's not going to work because where all the damage is, it's on the outside of your leg. Naturally, male athletes are kind of slightly bow-legged. A lot of stress is going on that side. Nothing's, holding and healing the way it should. But again, he had another solution. We're going to kind of reconstruct your leg. What do you mean reconstruct my leg? We're basically going to straighten your whole leg. We're going to break your shin. We're going to realign your leg. We're going to reconstruct your ligaments. And this is the best way to do it. And it seemed an awful lot, and it is an awful lot. But again, it was just a case of, right, do it. Just do it. And it gives me, again, there's a moment of hope there.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed. So that was probably the toughest period, because you'd went through a long period of surgeries and rehabs. You lasted 2 days, and all of a sudden it was gone. And every moment of setback, it just the hope was diminishing a little bit. And I knew the more setbacks I'd get, the less likelihood it was I was going to come back. But anyway, it worked out. We got back, and the kind of comeback game was that game at Rugby Park, which we won the league. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a story.
Let's touch on your playing career, Neil, because we're talking about the Champions League, and Celtic's Champions League journey begins with yourself as a player. I always feel like the kind of European journey of Celtic can be split up into two, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then you've got that 21st century period, which begins in Amsterdam and Ajax. You were there. I've actually got your stats here as a player, Neil, that over your 7 years, I think you only missed 2 games in Europe as a player. And I think for both of those games, it was won pretty convincing.
I think Sadeva was
one.
It
was 1-8-1 and then kind of rested in the next one. So you were there for every single one of these big moments over these next 7 years. But starting off with that night in Amsterdam, we go over there to Ajax in the Champions League qualifiers, and we win 3-1 and eventually qualify for the group stages. Did you feel how seismic a result that was at that time?
More the performance. It was a seismic performance, because we played brilliant, and everyone was just on point. But we it could have been more. And Henrik and Sutty as a front two. Then Agat was on fire. Bobby Pett was on fire.
Talking about flyers,
and I just had to sit in the midfield and my job basically, right, was to get the ball and give it to him, and if he gives it away, Lenny, get the ball back and then give it to him again, right?
Is this Martin saying that to you?
Yeah, that was my job, Look, I'll give you a story, right? You'll like this one. We're playing my first ever game at Ibrox. We'd already won the league. We'd won the League Cup. We're going to the cup final, and we're playing. It's after the split, and we're playing Rangers, who are a really strong team, they're great players. And we come in 0-0 at half time, but they're well on top. And he always came to me first if things were going wrong. And go, right, Lenny, what's going on out there? I says, well, we're getting outnumbered in midfield. Myself and Paul. He's not doing his work. Who? Well, you asked me, Lubo. He said, oh, is that right? I said, I'll tell you what to do, Lenny, right? You and Paul, right? This is the Champions League winner, Paul Lambert. You run and tackle and get the ball to him. And he always repeated himself, run and tackle and get the ball to him, right? So we were walking down the tunnel, and Lube was in front of us, and me and Lam were going, easy little get. 15 minutes into the second half, 2-0 to us. Guess who scored both? Lubo. And you're coming off going, that's good management, that.
Done the job. Brilliant.
So, yeah, that was my role. And playing with these great players, and it was a seismic win for us. And then we had it was very tense here in the second game. We lost it 1-0, and but Ajax were a fantastic team, so it was no disgrace in that. But then to get into the group stage, that's when everything becomes exciting. Then the hard work is getting through the qualification stage. The group stage, when you're in it, you can enjoy it. And our first year we had 9 points and still didn't qualify.
I know.
That's one that really sticks in your craw, because you always go back to the first game away at Juventus and the Amoruso penalty.
Martin went wild in
well, he was
one.
right though, because if you had VAR, you never know with VAR these days, but everyone could see it wasn't a penalty. We'd fought back from 2-0 down in Turin to 2-2 and looking like the team that was going to win it, never mind lose it, and then just an innocuous ball into the box and the referee gave a penalty, and that cost us in the long run,
Clearly you would have been dejected at the end of that game full time in the dressing room, because like you say, we looked like the team that were going to win it, and we get robbed. Let's be honest, we get robbed right to the death. Martin obviously has the famous interview after it where he's shocking constantly. What was Martin like in those moments?
You couldn't console him, I mean, he felt the defeats more than anybody, but particularly in the manner that happened. You know, he was inconsolable. And he was right, though, because it was a awful decision. And we had sort of played so well. I mean, you have to remember that Del Piero, Trezeguet, you know, can't remember, Cannavaro was there at the time, and, you know, all these great, Edgar Davids. So to come back from 2-0 down away from home, and you're thinking, what a point this will be.
Yeah.
And he's thinking the same. And he's so proud of the team and the fans and the club and the way we've, you know, held ourselves. And then you get done by a shocking decision like that. And it just, you know, you wouldn't speak to him like for maybe the next day. You know, he wouldn't. His head would be down. He'd be frustrated, angry, all those emotions that you would have as a manager.
Mm-hmm. But then we had that famous night in the reverse game against
Juventus
in the last game. I think it was Halloween night, wasn't it? We would defeat them 4-3, and that must have been a pretty special game. And I imagine as well, as much as we didn't get through, a result like that must have given the team confidence in going into the next season.
Yeah, but we had the confidence, you know. We didn't think, you know, who did we play? Porto, Rosenborg and Juventus. Yeah. We just let ourselves down a couple of games, Porto away and Rosenborg away. But the rest of the other 4 games we were excellent, you know. And it was our first year. And like I said, to have 9 points and not qualify is a real sore one. You know,
teams going through with 6 now.
I know.
7.
Yeah. But that night was again, it's one of those great European nights, you know. Juventus in town, and you know, Trezeguet, Lippi's the manager, you know, all these great players, and then the crowd has been starved of seeing this quality of team coming to Celtic Park and us competing with them, and then we go and beat them. Moravcik was unbelievable that night. So he scored an unbelievable volley. Henrik did his thing. Trezeguet did his thing. You know, he was a fabulous player, he was. But again, that's where you want Celtic to be, you know, competing on that stage, because we all crave it.
What was you're mentioning some of those players there, and I always say this, but it just brings such joy thinking about these wonderful players that played for us in that era. You mentioned Lubo, obviously. Talk about Lubo at Ibrox. What was he like day to day?
Oh, he was a joy.
Was he
absolute joy?
Yeah. Was he the same in training as he was on the pitch?
My first day of training was at Barrowfield, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and I had to put the floodlights on because it was like the first week of December and it's snowing. And I was saying to myself, what have I come to here? Right? And then after training, once you've trained with them, you realise this is why I'm here. He turned me inside out and outside in because he was so good with both feet. And he'd pretend to go and cross it, and you go to block it and he'd check back, but sometimes you'd give yourself enough to balance yourself to go back, and then you go to cross it and you go that way and he'd check back again and he'd be away, and you're like that. Nobody ever done that to me, you know what I mean? And then he had dynamite in both feet, you know, with his shots. He scored a goal at Easter Road one day.
Left foot,
do you remember it?
With arguably one of the finest Celtic kits ever.
The white one?
With the green, brilliant. What a jersey.
What a goal that was, because I was screaming at him to pass it to me, and I'm like, Lubo, get... Oh, what a goal. You know, it was one of them.
He's driven it in pretty much left.
It's like, I don't know if you ever see somebody hitting a 5-iron, it just goes like that.
Amazing.
And the goalkeeper just, no chance. But you think of this little guy, the power. And he could take corners with both feet. So he take a corner from that side and then swinger. Then he go and do it from that side.
Score from them.
Left foot, you know, I remember him, free kick he scored against Motherwell. Andy Gorham was in goal and he was saving everything. The next thing, the wee man steps up and bumped top corner. So yeah, he was a joy, and he was a great guy to be around. I never seen him lose his temper.
No,
you know, he just loved playing football, and he was great for us. You know, the only disappointment for him was in the first year that we won the treble. He got injured in the cup final, and had to come off. But I didn't know much about him until I come up here, you know, and he was class to play with. He's one of the best number 10s I've seen.
Yeah, we're going to kind of keep running through some of the seasons, Neil. And of course, after that first year in the Champions League, it's in the 2002-2003 season, which started with some disappointment, losing to Basel, but then ended in Seville. What comes to your mind just when you think of that season? There's so many memories, there's so many amazing games, but what sticks out to you?
Well, for a start, we were rock bottom after Basel, you know, because the expectation was built, and you're thinking, it's so funny when you look at how you felt then to where we ended up. football can take you some places that you don't expect, you know, and it's a great sort of learning experience as well. Sort of like every round after Saduva, we were the underdog as well until we got to the semi-final. We were favourites against Boa Vista, and they were the hardest team to beat, believe it or not. Obviously, Blackburn, that kicked it off, and they were a really good side. I mean, they had York Cole, Damien Duff, you know, Brad Friedel. At the time they came to play us, they were third. They just beaten Arsenal at the old Highbury, and they were a right good team. And they were the better team here, but we managed to win it 1-0. And then, of course, you had the old men against boys quote, which was just like manna from heaven, like for Martin, you know what I mean?
Did you use that, yeah?
Stuck it up on the wall, and there you go. And then I got to tell you this, guys, and this is, again, Celtic going to England. Blackburn couldn't handle our fans.
Yeah, right behind the goal.
Like, it's a little northern town, right, with a lovely stadium and that, like, you know what I mean? But there was thousands, you know, it was like a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And they'd never seen anything like it. The place was packed out. And, of course, again, pockets here. Massive behind the goal, but just green and white. And you remember the yellow kit we wore as well? Pockets of that. And, of course, we got off to a great start in the game. You know, Henrik capitalised on, I think somebody slipped and he just dinks it over Brad Friedel.
Was it Hartson and the defender slipped together? And then,
is that what it was?
It was, when you look it back, it's
like
weird.
a mirror image almost.
It's almost like the defender sort of mirrors what John Hartson does, slips, and then Henrik 1-on-1. There's only going to be there's only one thing that happens.
We battered him. You know, it was a really professional performance, and so he got the second one, I think. And it was just a brilliant feeling. Like, and then that gives you that little, you know, the juices start flowing then. We're onto something here again. I mean, some tough games. Celta Vigo were a tough team. You know, they were home and away. We had to rely on Big John. He scored a great goal in Vigo. That was a really tough one. Stuttgart, we were well clear. We're 2-0 up away, and that was like 5-1 on aggregate. So, indeed, he had run a mock that night as well. But obviously, the next one's the Liverpool one, which is another standout occasion, like, you know. And played well here, 1 each. Again, totally written off. You know, Battle of Britain, England v Scotland, there's only one winner. And Martin did a team talk that night that had us really bouncing out the door. And again, we played fantastically well, and in the end could have won it by more. And then again, it's that statement. You know, this is Celtic. All the English media all of a sudden are going, wow, they're a really good team. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They're really good. They've just beaten Liverpool convincingly, and that hasn't happened for a long, long time. A Scottish team beating one of the top English teams. And of course, you can imagine again the ramifications with the fans and the feel-good factor starting to build, like, you know. And then, of course, we get to Seville through really 2 tough games against Boa Vista. But of course, then there's the humour, because when we come back from Boa Vista and we're playing Rangers on the Sunday. I don't know if you boys will be old enough to remember Beach Ball Sunday, but some of the scenes there, boys, like, you know the roundabout at Ibrox. There's a guy plonked right in the middle, right, on a deck chair with a vest and a knotted handkerchief, right, and the bus is swinging round and he's just there with a scarf around and waving at us, like. Then you see guys walking up with crocodiles and like women in bikinis and just. And we ended up winning that one as well. You know, it was just awesome.
They're like glory days, aren't they? Even reflecting on that. I mean,
but it was fun. The fans loved it because they got their pride back on the big stage. You know what I mean? Martin and the players, and that, I was proud to be part of. We're giving a lot of joy back to, because we'd suffered for you know, a good sort of 20 odd years, like, you know, and now we were back on the big stage, and you can see what it meant to so many people.
Harry, just to finish off on, we've got some quick fire questions, if that's okay with you. All about your playing career.
Good.
If that's okay, I've got these.
I'll try.
Here. And as we said at the start, it was a.
There's no wrong or right answers here.
No, exactly. So it's all.
In fact, it's all right because I'm right.
Always right. Exactly. First off, best player you played alongside.
David Batty.
Yeah. Okay. Why David Batty out of everybody?
Because again, he was a thinking player. He was the first kind of holding midfielder back in the day, where now the holding midfielder is one of the key roles in football.
And they go for 115 million after a year.
Yeah, he was a player that played the game very simple,
Yeah.
done his job. Like, he was the perfect, for me, front line of the back four, where he just did his role. He was tough, he was strong, he was aggressive, and he just gave me the ball.
Yeah, Premier League winner as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was Blackburn, yeah. My next question was going to be the most underrated player, but do you think he would maybe fall into
Nope.
that category?
No chance.
No?
No chance. Most underrated. I don't know why I'm about to say this player, because he's a European winner as well, was Steve Finnan.
Yeah, okay.
One of the greatest right backs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Played the game. Again, I suppose it's because of maybe how he grew up and where he played in every league to get to where he got to. Maybe he went unnoticed. But for me, he was one of the calmest players on the ball, where you could give him a ball and there's the winger on him and plus a striker closing him down, and he would be simple. He'd keep it simple and move. He had a great cross. He was strong. He was powerful. But yeah, he was one of the most comfortable people on the ball that I ever played with.
Yeah, good shout. Best player you played, it could be either against in terms of a fullback or shared a pitch with.
I mean,
Lots of great ones.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about, I mean,
Should I just rule them off?
national team. I mean, Zidane was probably one of the best, but I have to say, to have played the pitch when, with Arsenal, Thierry Henry was a fantastic player. Robert Perez was incredible. So for me, look, even Paul Scholes, you'd have to say, it was always tough going against him because he never really had an off day. So I'd have to probably say Paul Scholes.
Okay. Most hostile atmosphere you ever played in? None? No.
I never understood people go, oh my God, this is scary.
Yeah.
Well, what's scary?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're playing on a green pitch, right, with 11 men. Okay, the stadium's changed, right? Okay, there's people cheering or people shouting and all that. I never understood when people, this is a bit scary, this. How?
Would that be the opposite to you?
I just think, look, again, you're going out there. Doesn't matter if you're home or away, you should be playing the way that you train, which is perfect. And it doesn't matter what kind of atmosphere there is. I mean, the most I played in was, 128,000 when we qualified, we were playing Iran back in 97.
Right.
And that was like you'd look at it and I remember going, players are going, ooh. I was like, wow, look at this is amazing. Give me the ball. Let me show you what I can do. I know. I've never been scared of anywhere.
Okay, good. Who would you say is the most famous person you've got in your phone book?
My wife.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
My wife.
Do you not fancy coming up for a wee job in River City or something up here and with the soap?
Look, my phones. Look, I have one or two, but
yeah.
Recently I have to say, probably Sonny Fodera.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I've just recently met him, which is absolutely a top bloke. So, yeah.
Not reading a story before this as well. Nicky Byrne, did you share from Westlife? Did you share a flat with him?
I shared shared a house.
A house, okay.
We were young YTSs. He was in another room and I was in another room, and obviously we were very much together because a lot of people went home on the weekends, but me and him didn't. So we were like best friends, but we were like brothers. Like we'd be best friends, and all of a sudden we'd be fighting. Then next minute we'd be best friends again, and then we'd be fighting. But yes,
So this was at Leeds. Yeah.
This was at Leeds.
Was he just another room practicing his guitar? And
No, he was never practicing. He was always singing though.
Was he?
He was always singing. He was
And were you sitting thinking,
always singing and dancing. And we always used to say to him, why don't you just go and sing in a band? Like you should actually go sing in a band. And lo and behold, he left and went and sang in one of the greatest bands ever.
So if Westlife are ever coming in and I'm needing tickets, then I know I'm coming to.
Yeah.
And final question: how many beers did you have after the Champions League final in 2005?
I had actually none.
Really?
I snapped my groin. Don't forget.
Of course, you were finishing.
Yeah, so I wasn't in the party mood.
Yeah.
And again, people always go, "Oh my God, it's amazing," and like I said, I always have two sides to this, and I tell my individual side, and then I tell about what it is to play in a team.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not about yourself; it's about your team. And you know, I did what I can to celebrate with them, but like on a personal note, it was one of the hardest nights because it's probably one of the biggest games an Australian can ever play in. You know, I mean, hopefully we could get to a World Cup final, but other than that, it's a European Cup final, and you know, for my groin to snap in that game, it was painful. And you know, knowing I was going in for surgery the next day, you know, it was tough. It was a tough one to take.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's not about me. You know, this is why you play in a team sport, because your teammates get you through it.
Yeah. Well, flip that actually then. How many beers did you have after the Scottish Cup final? I've got the treble.
None, because you can't have any while you're driving up there.
You're
so
a
I have
coach.
to
You can
wait.
have it now. You're fine. We've got obviously Cillian Sheridan here, so we're going to have a little look back on your Celtic career, Cillian, and some of the other parts of your journey in football. Matt,
Yes.
Cillian's Celtic career, came here as a youth player from Ireland. What do we remember about Cillian's Celtic career?
Cillian, you have your own section in the stats book.
Brilliant.
And it's
Brilliant. Can't wait to hear
What
this.
a place to have your own section. So, 12 first team appearances for Celtic, 4 goals. Now, we're having a little look back at sort of your debut and your Champions League debut and so on. So, as we mentioned earlier, your first team debut came away to Inverness in the Scottish Cup quarter final in February 2007. Have you got many memories of that game itself? I know earlier we were touching on, do you remember any late winners? And conveniently you didn't remember that game.
I think for fans that probably don't remember that game to begin with, it was you came off the bench. Was the score at 1-0 at that time to Inverness?
Yeah.
And
I
you
came
took it away from
on.
there.
I came on, changed the game pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Won the game. Celtic went on to win the Scottish Cup that year. All thanks to me, basically. That's all you need to know.
That's it. Right, we can move on. Thank you for listening. No.
No, I came on losing 1-0. We had a corner. We scored pretty late. Stephen Presley scored. And then I set up Kenny Miller for a winner, last minute winner. And then literally the only thing I remember from it is I'm sure I had a bit of a black eye. I think I played in a youth team game and got a black eye. So like in photos back then, I used to get all my kit extra large, and I'm a large now, like, so I wasn't an extra large back then. And so like looking back on photos of it, there's just this big baggy jersey on me, or I look kind of sick. I look ill, like I'm pale, black eye. And I remember after the game in the dressing room, Neil Lennon like saying how good I done.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the like real memories I can have.
That must
from
have been
it.
a wonderful feeling, though, coming off the pitch and someone of the stature of Neil Lennon saying that to you and won the game. Looking at some more of these moments from your career, your first start came in November 2008, which was a 4-2 win over Hibernian, and you scored in that game. Describe what that feels like, scoring for Celtic.
It's a hard thing to describe. It's like I remember my celebration from it is just like I've just like done the weirdest like fist pump in the air, and it was more like just a, like, yes, I've scored for Celtic kind of thing. It wasn't like sheer joy or like
Is it almost
crazy
a relief to it in a way?
It's like borderline relief and like happiness that like yes, like I've just scored, because I kind of was always confident if I started I could score, and I just kind of like once it happened, I was like, I can remember the goal like vividly. As soon as I went past the keeper, I was kind of like, I'm scoring here. This is a goal. So like it was nice to be able to know, or probably then like have the blind confidence to be like, this is definitely going in. So it was just like it was almost like a you did say relief, but it is a hard one to describe. My celebration is kind of
explain it better.
I can imagine. It must be everybody's dream, though, isn't it, to score for Celtic and think. I mean, maybe you could overthink these things of that'll be my celebration, or I'll run to this part of the stadium or whatever. But I bet in the moment it just gets away from you.
No, to be fair, I've never been one to have planned celebrations. Done it once or twice, and then
What did you go for? When you
it was when I was on loan at St Johnson, and I done a. I remember planking was all the rage.
Oh yeah.
And
Just lying face down and
I
something.
scored and just lay face down on the ground, and then I think it was just that one actually.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another one.
Very innovative.
Aye, definitely. And topical as well at the time. October 2008, he came on in the Champions League at Old Trafford. We were talking earlier on a little bit about that. As a football player, that's what it's all about, isn't it? You want to be playing in the best arenas in the game, and Old Trafford, surely one of those.
Yeah, it was probably similar to the cup game because they were losing. So you're losing 3-0 and you thought, right, how can I get this back? Cillian, warm up, on you go, save us. But no, it was, I don't know if you have when I came on or anything, but it was maybe like the last 10, 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, I think I looked into it earlier, about 15 to go.
Yeah, the game was done, and I think Gordon Strachan was just giving me a chance to like play in a game like that, in a stadium like that. And I just remember how good the United players were, like Rooney, Tevez, Johnny Evans was playing then. He Cruyffed me in the box.
Yeah.
That's like that's
Man U.
literally. I know.
Mental.
Do you think that made it on his highlights reel? The Cruyff
John
one?
Ep, maybe he put that into his video highlights when he went back to Man U to say like, look, you know what I can do. You know, sign me again. But he's, at that Burnley game recently, he scored a goal which got chalked off, but then he played like this unbelievable ball in for Bruno Fernandes. So, sure he's still got it.
I wonder if he's ever Cruyff done anybody else throughout his career, or attempted to, or if he just won and out, you know. Done one Cruyff turn and that's it.
Yeah.
You know?
I wouldn't even attempt a Cruyff turn, so
Nah.
fair play to him for even trying it, but
Definitely. As we're just sort of moving on, talking about your career and stuff like that as well there, Cillian, you know, we've touched on your memories of those games and those big moments, I guess, for you, but what are your sort of memories in terms of your time coming through, breaking into the first team, making that transition from the youth levels to the first team? You know, describe what that was like, that journey.
It all happened quite fast. It was like I came over without really any expectations, and then hit the ground running my first season in the youth team, and then like within my first season to have made my debut, I never would have imagined it. And probably like when I first came over, if people saw me the first few weeks, and you told them by the end of the season he'll have made his debut, there's no way anyone would have believed.
do you think you would have made your debut?
I came over, I was raw, because I'd never had like academy football or upbringing, so it was just a totally different world to what I'd been playing. Like no, not to shoot down what I was doing before back home, but it was so different to like the trainings and stuff, and like even doing like little possession boxes. And then for me to go up, and I remember like doing possession boxes up with the first team that they do just as a warm up, like a little fun exercise. And so for me, it was like it was like a run. I'd need to do a cool down after, because I was just always be in the middle. I couldn't. Yeah. Gordon Strachan would take part in them, like would never give it away. And I remember like coming away thinking, how's he do that? Like how's he, like at that age, still so good in like. Yeah. He's still doing part of the training that I should be doing, or like that I should be good at.
Yeah.
I've got better at it now, by the way. But yeah, no.
Just for all those clubs out there that potentially you are better at it now, yeah.
But it was no, like it just went so fast. I was lucky that I hit the ground running. Once I got going in the youth team, I had a really good scoring records my first season. Got into the first team. And then I just enjoyed the whole time. Like I never had any hard times or was never homesick. Everyone in the youth team got on with, like, it was just everything went as good as it could have went, really.